Hi, you're listening to FREJDA Talks, a sporadically published podcast series focusing on current events and job markets in the field of the social sciences. Hope you enjoy today's episode. So, hi and welcome to FREJDA Talks. My name is Alicia, and today we're doing a first episode about internships and getting into the working life as a social scientist. I'm here with Thomas Bressler today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. As you said, I'm Thomas Bressler. I have a background in peace and conflict studies and a master's in political science. I've also studied a little bit at graduate school, so shout out to y'all. That was a really good course. I was very fond of that. Now I'm actually working as a business manager with a pharmaceutical company. I will probably explain it a little bit more later because a pharmaceutical company doesn't really tell the full story, so to say.
Yeah, because I saw you posted that on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So social science and now more business relations.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want to start with explaining a bit what you're doing in your current job.
Sure. So I am a sort of liaison between the clients we have and the consultants that we send out. So the consultant world is very interesting to get into because when you think about it, everything is about just people, right? Everything we do, that's people that has done it, and that's the same with basically everything. As I said to you earlier as well. So you're either good at people or you're good at gadgets, and if you're good at gadgets, you might go for the technical side. So I work with the people that's good at gadgets and then make sure that they have work to do in companies that do the gadgets. And then there's lots of technical details about the pharmaceutical industry, of course. So you could just keep on asking me questions about and we can delve into it a little bit.
Yeah, because I think the first part I want to ask about is that you said that you work for a CRO.
Yeah.
What is that?
So that's the abbreviation for a clinical research organization. Every drug that's developed has to go through rigorous testing, and those kind of testings is called a clinical trial. And the clinical trial is it's separated in different phases. So there's when you come up with a cool new innovative method of treating any sort of disease. Then it's basic research. Oh, we might have found something here. And then you have a concept and you want to try it out. So then there's phases 1, 2, and 3. And that's basically where you scale it up. So you have something that potentially works. And in phase 1, you might see some good results. And then in phase 2, you scale it up a little bit. Maybe do some clinical tests on humans. And then you scale it up even more and do further tests. And it should be said, I've worked for 3 weeks with a heavily technical subject, so I won't be able to explain the full picture. But from what I know thus far of how the industry works, I will share with you. And the last piece is when the drug is sort of out on the market, and that's when you do a phase 4 study, which can be quite long running. And so the people I work with. That's people in the companies running the studies and the people that we send in that might help them do the studies. Or a clinical research organization also can take in a full study and do it in-house. So we do both. Okay. Well, I guess we understand at least a bit more what the CRO does. But what do you actually do there? What does your day-to-day look like during these 3 weeks you've been there? Yeah, so what I've realized about work life thus far is that Outlook is your inevitable friend, right? I mean, it's the only way of communicating that companies have and organizations. I mean, it's absurd. Everything, half of my time probably, thus far, has been in Outlook. And it should be said, my internship I did, we can delve into that a little bit later as well, at Swedish Chamber of Commerce in the UK. That was also they use the same kind of tools. All companies use them. It's Outlook and Microsoft Suite, right? it's a way of communicating, right, with people. So back to what I said earlier, either you're good at people or you're good at gadgets. And if you're good at gadgets, then you use all these weird tools that they use in the clinical trials. And if you're good at communicating and you're good with people, which a lot of us social scientists are, most of us tend to come from like creative backgrounds, right? Then you tend to be quite good with people as well. And then you have to use the Microsoft suite, and you have to use Outlook. So that's been what I realized the past half year at the Swedish Chamber of Commerce, and here as well. I basically work a lot in Outlook, send out emails, try to connect with people, establish my network, making sure that I set the ball rolling and get people to contact me instead of me contacting them all the time. That's what I want to do. And that's what we did at similar at the Swedish Chamber of Commerce. If you establish a brand, then and people know about you, then they will come to you instead of you having to chase them. And that's also something that I've learned from my previous sales background.
Okay, but now we started getting into like the internship a bit more. So is that how you got into business relations from your peace and conflict background?
Yeah, I guess so. I wanted to get into like business a little bit more in the start of my work life and my career, because I believe that companies doesn't have that same kind of rigorous meritocracy that a lot of institutions and organizations in the public sector has. And that's, I mean, if you're good in an interview, then they might hire you a company. But an organization has to take into account a lot of different other things. And yeah, I am good at in interviews. I am a good people's person, and I'm a good salesperson as well. So I will know that if I come to an interview, I might have a good shot. But it's hard in, as I said, public institutions or organizations, because there's so many other factors that they have to tend to as well before they hire you. That's why I mainly got into I was gonna try out the business part of work life, right? So and also my girlfriend moved to London, and I was coming with. I had to find something, so the goal was to stay a little bit in London. But then I got headhunted due to the work I did at the Swedish Chamber of Commerce. When I got headhunted, it was like a decision of, should I go for this, or should I go for the long shot goal? I got another offer to work a little bit and do a master's thesis at a climate tech company, which is a little bit more right on my real passions, which is climate mitigation. So I got the option of either a shot with not a guaranteed chance of moving onwards, then I would just get this half year, or I get more than a year, because I will probably stay for more than a year, right? The company I'm at now. That is mainly why I took this chance, because you really need the experience that we all know, right? 2 or 3 years experience in any application, and what I think in business life, then it doesn't really matter so much what you do during that experience. The most important part is that, okay, you're employable. You're an employable person. That sets you out. And that made the decision for me. I mean, it's for going from political science to life science, it's interesting, and it's not very common, but for me it was just this decision of, now I want to get out in the work life.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That seems to have been a smart move on your part.
We'll see in a few years, right?
Yeah, well, you have your first job, you have a leg up on us there. Yeah. But if I remember correctly, you have had 2 internships.
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah. And wasn't the first, so we have this one with the UK
Chamber of Commerce.
Yes,
Swedish
thank
Chamber.
you. Yeah. But before that, didn't you work for Region Skåne and something more aligned of what you wanted to do before, with like climate change?
I worked for a Swedish think tank in my previous internship called FREJDA. So that's, I mean, what I studied a little bit, right? Being in the political sphere, but it should be said that the think tank is a pretty good breeding ground for a lot of us, I think, because it sets you on a course not only directly to public office, but it also sets you on a course to the business life, because you're right in the middle of it. You're in between academia and you're in between companies and you're in between public organizations and politics. So I think that was, it was a really good choice. And I also had issues with getting like internships my first time, of course. It's not easy, right? We all know that. That's my first tip, I guess. Mm-hmm. If you're into anything, if you don't know really what you want to do with your education, try out think tank. There's actually 60 or something like that in Sweden. And there's probably shit tons of them in Europe, right? Yeah, so it's a good step in, I would say, and you get to figure out a lot about which direction. And I took the business direction based on that, I think.
Yeah, what would you say are kind of the differences or like similarities with doing something like business or something that is more the political science route between these two internships?
I mean, the political science, it is organizational knowledge, what we study. And organizational knowledge is very important in, I'd say, companies as well, because those are organizations. And there's politics inherent to that. There's politics inherent to where the money is supposed to go and negotiations for contracts. And that's why, actually, just remembering now, that was why the recruiter, I asked him, so what made you interested in me then? And he said, well, he's a Frenchman. If it's okay if there's any French people, I will do a little bit of an impression of how my impression of this Frenchman that called up me, and he said, well, you had this background in peace and conflict, you know how to negotiate, great. And I was like, yeah, sure. I gave him a little bit of a technical answer because I found it quite interesting, because negotiating in between people, it wasn't really peace resolution or conflict resolution in between people wasn't really our focus, if you remember it, and as I remember it. So I gave him just a diplomatic answer, and well, I think it's not really negotiation, but maybe I would say mediation is something that I'm quite good at. So just taking the middle route, because I didn't want to state the obvious, which was that, it's not really what you think, bro, but yeah.
Yeah, well, pulling a bit on the technical lingo, hoping to sell it. Yeah,
it's always good.
It was interesting how this kind of understanding of a program can kind of help you in places where you don't really think it might have a pull.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we studied has a lot of it has traction, right? Because everyone reads up on politics. So we really have to use that to our advantage in going out and searching for jobs, because people know about conflicts and they will associate it somehow. But people might not know as much about the different technical educations that's out there. So they might have a harder time sell their education. But that's our main task right now. And well, I've done it now, but I'm encouraging you all to sell your education and sell yourself. Use that mildly. Don't take my word. Don't quote me on that. But I mean, just take everything that you've accumulated in knowledge thus far and make it to a story that fits the specific purpose you're heading into right now. And that was what I did with that recruiter, and I've done it in my CV. I remember also, did you get the letter from Roxana where she said, no, it's your you have to lay out your own path, and she said sell yourself. So I'm also saying it.
Okay, so we're gonna listen to our former program coordinator and take her word for
Shout
it.
out to Roxana.
Oh, wonderful lessons you learn at Peace and Conflict here in Lund.
Yeah, you do.
Mainly, you make your own path. People might not know what you are doing, but you can sell it. Apparently, even in the business world, you can pull on some strings and make yourself sound like an employable person.
Yeah.
Apart from that, do you have anything other you want to tell us about your internship experience? Like something you felt like you learned from it that we haven't really had time to touch upon yet?
Yeah, there are both interesting aspects of being an intern and a bit some problems with it as well, right? On a broader level, companies and organizations tend to use interns as pretty cheap labor. So there is an inherent problem with organizations that rely solely on cheap labor for them to be able to function. And that is something you will notice if you get into any of those organizations, because then you will have to carry the weight, so to say. And that can be a really cool learning experience. But it's also, I think, a little bit problematic, because an internship should be mutually beneficial. It should be a balance, a good balance. But I think the case is probably at many instances of people having internships, there might not be that kind of balance. I believe my first internship, for example, there was a better balance than in the second one, because that organization had better funding, and it can be as simple as that sometimes. But it's also lots of room to grow within that kind of problem. There's this opportunity for yourself, and you just have to make the best out of the situation, I would say. But with internships, it's especially so because you're not getting paid in Sweden. You get paid for an internship in lots of other countries, but not in Sweden and not in Swedish organizations abroad. As I said, then to summarize that kind of paragraph, then there are both problems and problematic aspects and really good opportunities with internships. And I would say, to summarize a little bit, that I wouldn't have gotten the job I have now were it not for the internship I had. Yeah,
but that seems to be a really good note to kind of end this episode with a good little indicator that an internship can actually help you, but you also want to advocate for yourself.
It should be said, I skipped my master's thesis for going into the workplace though. So you might have to change around your plans a little bit. That's also something to end off quite nicely with, I guess.
Okay, so be flexible and speak for yourself,
sell your story.
That's a better way of phrasing it. Sell your story.
But that sounds like self-help,
Well, I guess it is what you make it, but I do like sell your story better than sell yourself. So
I agree with you on that note.
Yeah, so thank you for a better phrasing there in the end and for sharing kind of your experience with us. And thank you to all of you who listened. I hope you gained something from this episode, something you haven't thought about before. And we'll see you soon again with a new episode. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. You can find FREJDA at frejda.org or at FREJDA.org on all social medias.